morning, everyone. Welcome to the morning show. We're coming to you today on WJOP-LP Newburyport at FM 96.3 on Channel 9 and on Newburyport Community Media's YouTube station at ncmhub.org. I'm your host, Mary Jacobsen, and today I am just delighted to welcome Kristine Malpica of Imagine Studios here to talk about the upcoming 4th Annual Indigenous Peoples Day celebrations coming up on Monday, October 14th at Waterfront Park from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's a free, family-friendly event with an abundance of performances, artisans, and activities. There's truly something for everyone. So, Kristine, first of all, welcome, and thank you so much for taking time from your very busy life these days, I'm sure, to visit the morning show.
Thank you, Mary. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm so happy to have you here. I've been looking over the agenda, and it's just chock full of really amazing sounding performances and lots of opportunities for learning and for crafting and for just plain fun. So, well, I wanted to start out by finding out, this is the 4th Annual Indigenous Peoples Day. How did Imagine Studios become involved in organizing Indigenous Peoples Day celebrations in Newburyport? And what does it mean to you personally to sponsor this event?
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I got involved myself in the first event, which was actually inspired by local community members, including the Unitarian Universalist First Parish Church, and they had been very active in advocacy issues around Indigenous Peoples Day here in Newburyport, changing the resolution to officially kick out Columbus and put in Indigenous people. And so,
a good move.
Yes, a very good move. And so they initiated it, and I got involved in the first event, which was at Moseley Pines. And it started as a very small grassroots effort. I happen to be connected to some local Indigenous people. I'd love to give a shout out to my dear friend and mentor, Chickie Red Dawn Dobson. Hello out there, if you're out there, Chickie. And so Chickie got involved in the first event, and we brought her into the fold with us and to do this event, and she's been with us ever since, and an inspiration and heart and soul behind it. So Imagine Studios, one of my many hats that I wear as a community organizer. We got involved because our focus really is culture and arts, and performing arts in particular, but cultural and multicultural arts. So it was kind of a natural fit for Imagine Studios to help bring in some presenters and performers, musicians, and others to kind of supplement the observance and the advocacy issues with some also cultural elements and celebration.
Well, Kristine, I also wanted to ask you, because I know this is something you've given much thought to, why is it important for all of us to acknowledge and celebrate Indigenous culture, knowledge, and history?
That's a great question. I mean, I think it really starts with being conscious of the land we're on. You know, we are all settlers here. We are all immigrants, right? This issue, of course, we're hearing about a lot in the news these days, so it's important to remember that we are all immigrants unless we are the original peoples of this land. And I want to give a brief, acknowledgement that we are here on the lands of the Pawtucket originally, Pennacook peoples, and also there were many groups in this area, the Massachusetts and others. So we want to acknowledge that and remember, the privileges that we have of being on this land. And so it kind of starts really with a recognition of that, and that we are all here because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like reaching back into time. And acknowledging that things have not always been as they are now, and the people that were here way before us, and we were migrants. And so I think it's really important and helps us find meaning in the geography of where we live. Also, I've had Claudia Foxtree on the show a couple of times. She's an excellent Native American educator. And the point she always makes is, we didn't all disappear, we're still here.
That was going to be my next point, is that, that's...
We're all still here. We live amidst you, and we have active culture, we have, active music, and that's what's wonderful about... Let's talk about the agenda you have. But go ahead and make the point you were going to.
No, that's great. And Claudia is fantastic. She's been at the event
Yeah.
for a couple of years. She may be a last minute surprise.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
Participant, but we're
Yes.
not sure yet. She has another obligation that day. But absolutely, and I think the point also of this event is to show people, to highlight the contemporary traditions that come from older traditions,
Yeah,
and
that's
that
right.
continuity, and that, as you say, Native people are still here, very vibrant, contributing members of society, of culture, of ecological knowledge, of technological knowledge. So it's important for us to realize that. And unfortunately, in the Northeast, we have a long history of erasure.
Yes.
So this is one of the problems historically. And if I put my public historian cap on,
Please do.
that's another issue that I trying to work on with my own research in this area, and how the Native peoples were dispossessed, displaced violently and otherwise through disease, and to really kind of realize that we don't know as much in this area as some other areas in the country. It's important to bring that back.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about Indigenous Peoples Day celebrations then.
All
So,
right.
opening ceremonies are going to start at 10 a.m. on the 14th and will include so many exciting events. And one of them will be Jonathan James Perry's Mishoon Dugout Canoe. And I understand that Mishoon is a Wampanoag word, I think, for boat. And so he's going to give a presentation and a launch and a paddle. So tell us about Jonathan and his process. And Maeve, if you could cue up the photos we have of Jonathan and then of the dugout and phases of construction. And something about the historic importance of these canoes as well.
Yeah, well, one of the important things to realize is that Native peoples didn't live in a vacuum. The bands that lived here also communicated with and traveled extensively, both through the Merrimack or Melodamac, which is the original name for the river, meaning deep river in Abenaki, all the way up to the lakes in New Hampshire, where the river originates, and also out to the ocean. And Native peoples in this area used a variety of boats and watercraft. They used birch bark canoes, especially north of the river, of the Merrimack, that is, and up into Maine, Wabanaki territory and the Dawnland. But they also, in this area, most likely used Mishoons, especially for ocean-going and large areas of rivers like the Merrimack, because they were very sturdy and long and large and could take the waves. And so it was really a lot about trade and interaction and connection with kin groups all throughout the region.
Yeah, I was amazed to learn that they had some of their dugout canoes were sturdy enough and large enough so that they actually did whaling in them. And then the smaller ones they would use for inland rivers and creeks. So
It's quite incredible, yes.
it is incredible. And as people will have seen in the photos that Maeve is showing, the technique they used for these was a mixture of burning out with coals the inner part of the canoe and then carving the outside. So an elaborate process.
Very, yes.
And a very deep connection with waters and the life
Absolutely.
in the waters. So, and then we have also the Lonecry drummers and singers. And let me see if I can get that. We have a clip to play.
Yeah, and actually, I'd love to come back to talking a little bit more about the Mishoon and the launch,
Oh, yeah,
too,
sure,
if that's
go
okay.
ahead.
But
Give me a time to
of
set
course,
this up.
Absolutely. Oh, all right, great. Yeah, I didn't know if you were going to ask any more questions, so I didn't want to go on. But yes, this Mishoon launch is really exciting and historic. It's probably the first time in hundreds of years that we know of that a ceremonial paddle has been conducted, certainly in a public space like this at the waterfront, being launched. And we encourage everybody to come out 10 o'clock sharp, because the tide is in our favor, so we're so fortunate. 9:30 is high tide. We have to launch within about an hour of that to make
So the
sure
water will be
it's safe
flowing
and
back
going
to
in
the-
towards Palm Island. And we also want to thank the people who made this happen. Jonathan James Perry, of course, first and foremost, for being willing to bring this and to make it and share with us his cultural knowledge. Also, Darius Coombs, Smash P. Wampanoag, is coming. He'll be part of the crew along with his wife Tootie. And we are so grateful to the Little Compton Historical Society, where this canoe first launched just this
In
last
Rhode Island,
Saturday.
yeah.
It was its maiden voyage, and they're loaning it to us. And Lowell's Boat Shop is going down to pick it up and bring
great.
it here, and they're going to offer support along with Plum Island Kayak. And so it's a community effort, and we're also grateful to the Custom House Maritime Museum for their support.
Wonderful.
James Russell, the director, has been very supportive of the whole process. So it's a
real-
community. It takes a community. It takes a
takes
village.
a community to launch a Mishoon Dugout
It
Canoe.
does, exactly. Yes.
We have a new slogan.
Yes, that's right. I like it. Absolutely.
Excellent. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's very exciting and very
Yeah.
distinctive. So
Yeah.
it's a great kind of event for the whole community to participate in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, shall we listen then to the Lonecry drummers and singers? They're coming all the way from Prince Edward Island. And this is a Micmac First Nation drum group.
Mi'kmaq, yes.
So let's listen to the clip and then maybe talk a little about it afterwards.
And these are actually tales of chickies, so I'd like to mention that too.
Okay. Well, it's very lively. It kind of makes you start kind of moving rhythmically.
Absolutely, that's the idea.
Yeah.
The gathering drum is for dance and for powwow and other kinds of cultural dance and celebration and commemoration. So we are so thrilled that Lonecry is coming down. Tim Sock is the drum leader and actually a relative of Chickie Red Dawn's, and so we're delighted. We actually traveled up recently to Canada, to Prince Edward Island, and we were fortunate enough to go to a ceremony up there, a Mishiomi, which is their powwow in Lennox Island, and they're coming back down here. So kind of a cultural exchange,
absolutely.
international, cross-border.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And they're going to invite the public to come and join and dance and participate.
It'd be hard not to dance.
It is. Yeah, it's infectious.
think.
You can't help it.
Because the beat is
Yeah,
so rhythmic. And it just
absolutely.
kind of viscerally makes you want to move in tandem with it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's exciting. They're coming a long way.
They
It's
are.
not a quick trip up to
No.
Prince Edward Island.
No,
So,
about 11-hour drive. So,
Yeah,
yep,
wonderful.
very fortunate to have them coming down to join us.
Well, there's another musical program, and that will be a flute performance by Hawk Henries. I believe at 10:45. Christine, tell us a little bit about his background, and then we'll hear a clip while Maeve shows a picture of what he looks like.
Yes, thank you. Well, Hawk is an incredible flute maker. He's Nipmuc, and he makes flutes, traditional Eastern woodland flutes, a variety of flutes. He often brings them with him also to sell. This year, I'm not sure if he'll have any with him, but he is such a versatile performer too, because he plays everything from traditional native Eastern woodland music to kind of with symphony orchestras.
Well, yeah.
So he's a sought-after musician on so many different scales and so many different genres. So he's just a versatile, cross-cultural kind of player, and just a fun, great sense of humor, just engages with the audience beautifully, and a cultural ambassador, really, of the Nipmuc around the world.
Well, let's listen to him.
Yeah. So pretty. Oh, I know, it's beautiful.
That's so lovely. It's a very different feel from the drumming that we heard. It's very kind of gentle and very soothing and evocative. Really lovely.
Absolutely.
And this was him playing a flute that he himself created, no doubt.
Yes, absolutely. And for those of you who would like to hear more, you can go on his website. You can also visit the Reciprocity Project, which is a documentary film. It's called Wejigawabik, and that's the coming dawn. And Hawk is welcoming the dawn with his flute music, along with Roger Paul, one of the other presenters that is coming, a ceremonial firekeeper and kind of master of ceremonies in a sense of our opening circle, our sacred fire circle. So we're so glad to have both of them together here as they welcome the people and the dawn.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Absolutely. Well, let's talk about, because these are just at the beginning of the highlights.
Yeah, yes, I know.
Christine, there's
we
more.
could go on and on.
This is billed as a family-friendly event. The next event I wanted you to comment on was a family program with a storyteller named Larry Spotted Crow Mann. And Maeve, if you could show that photo. He's going to be sharing ancient tales from the Nipmuc people, I believe. And what will the focus of his stories be?
Well, that's a good question. I am looking forward to hearing them.
You'll find out when we do.
It's going to be a surprise, yes. He's so versatile as well. You never know what he's going to come up with. He has a new children's book out, though, and he does a lot of education work, and it's sure to be delightful. He also plays the hand drum and sings, so there may be some music involved in that. So we'll have to all be surprised and see what he has to offer. But it will be interactive, no doubt, and delightful for the kids. So please bring your kids.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
And your big kids, because we're all big kids.
We're all big kids.
That's right.
At heart.
Yep.
Especially in the presence of a really gifted storyteller. I think that's one of the great things about somebody who's a good storyteller is they bring out the child within to appreciate just the wonder and the magic and the entrancement of an enchanting story. So.
Precisely, yes.
And then Roger Paul is coming. He's described as a cultural educator, but you also and Maeve, if you could show briefly the picture of Roger, the ceremonial fire you mentioned. So tell us a little bit about Roger's role.
Yeah, I'm sorry I jumped ahead a little bit there, but
That's okay. No, it's foreshadowing.
It's always great to talk about Roger. He's also a colleague of mine at the Upstander Project, and he's an incredible educator. He's a native speaker of Passamaquoddy. I don't believe he spoke English till he was about 6 years old.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, and he has just a vast and deep knowledge of his culture and Wabanaki culture and language. He also teaches language, a number of schools, and he's a teacher by day and at night as well. And he travels all over the country as a leader and a cultural ambassador as well. So we're so honored, really, to have him be here and to help us with our opening ceremonies and our fire circle, and to help welcome the event and everyone in a ceremonial way, a traditional way. Yeah,
wonderful.
But also a modern way, because we're
here.
We're here, right? So we're bridging that. Yep, absolutely.
That's
Tradition and contemporary together, and that's
blending the two.
That's really what this event highlights.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we're still just getting started. We're also going to have wampum and corn husk doll making, a workshop by Darius Coombs. And Maeve, could you show the picture of Darius and Eleanor Tootie Coombs?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about the wampum. Define that, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you can see. I'm actually wearing some right now. So in contemporary culture, many native peoples of the Dawnland, Wampanoag in particular, because the material of wampum comes from the Welker-Quahog shell, and the purple and white colors had very deep significance. Wampum goes back to the earliest times, thousands and thousands of years, people have been using it. It also was used during the time of colonization, and it became a currency. It was originally a social currency and also a way of communication. Many people have heard of wampum belts. especially with the Iroquois. There's some famous wampum belts, but out here there was also a lot of these belts made with the beads, very small beads of the quahog shell of the wampum, and they were used for diplomacy. They could be used to convey messages and important diplomatic agreements. And leaders would often have these wampum belts, and they would use them intertribally. And also, when the colonists arrived, it became a way to communicate with them. Eventually, it was taken over, and it became an actual currency. You could pay for your Harvard education with wampum at one point. And the Dutch started manufacturing it, and so they kind of appropriated wampum, and it became something very different than it was originally intended to be used as. But still today, there are many artisans who make wampum. I have also a bracelet on here made by Anawan Whedon, another Wampanoag artisan, and Darius makes beautiful wampum jewelry, and he's going to show people how it was done with a bow drill. So you'll be able to drill a hole,
I've seen those.
yeah, through the piece of wampum and make your own pendant, which is going to be great. He came last year to do that as well, so we're very honored to have him. Yes.
Well, so wampum is a multi-purpose physical symbol.
It is.
That people could use in many different ways before it became more exclusively thought of by us immigrants anyway as
exactly, you got
a form of monetary exchange.
You got it.
And of course, what's of value is what we ascribe value to. And so it has a really fascinating history then of its multiple purposes, and then it's also fascinating to think about the shift in how it was used as the immigrants from the UK came,
and Dutch and others,
and Dutch and French and many people from many European locations. So well, that should be really interesting.
Yes, absolutely.
And just to note then the historical component as well.
Yes,
and the historical technology of the bow drill. Those are effective. I've actually used one once, and they're challenging. You have to get the feel for it just right, but once you do, it works really well.
Yeah,
so, anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's another thing we want to highlight with this event is the technology and the engineering. That Native people were great scientists and engineers and still are today, but that's something that we don't really think of when we think of Native peoples. We think of them as somehow primitive or savage in the past, and so we want to highlight that they made incredible contributions to technology.
Yeah, that's part of the erasure that you were talking about earlier that we need to unerase.
Absolutely.
So Indigenous Peoples Day will contribute to the unerasure, the revisibility.
We hope so.
So, and we're still going here because we also have a group, I believe Massachusetts-based women's group called the Wolf Cry Singers. And Maeve, could you show that picture briefly as well? I believe they'll be doing traditional songs in as native languages, but also in English. Is that correct?
Yes, yep. So again, they'll be sharing traditional songs as well as contemporary songs. And so they use the hand drums as opposed to the large gathering or powwow drums, as people call them. And they'll be playing and singing and sharing maybe some stories too, along with the singing in English and, as you say, in native languages. So we're excited for them to be here this year. Last year they were supposed to come, but there was an emergency in the family, so we're so glad that they're here with us this year. Yeah,
wonderful. That's great. Well, and then most everybody has heard about dream catchers, and there will be Sarah Small Turtle and Daniela Curry Gutierrez, if I pronounce it, correct me if I didn't pronounce it correct, are going to have a family art and cultural craft table with both dream catchers and prayer ties. And Maeve, if you could show the photo of Sarah Small Turtle with the dream catchers, tell us a little bit about what will be happening at this table.
Yeah, well, this is so special, and Sarah has been a big part of our event. She's on our planning committee. She's from the Lennox Island Band of Mi'kmaq as well, and she's Chicky Red Dawn's niece. And we're just so pleased and honored to have her. She does an amazing job with the kids' table. She has them make prayer tie bundles, which are cornmeal in this case. For adults, often it's tobacco, which is a ceremonial plant. And you put it inside a piece of cloth and tie it, and it can be a prayer or an intention or a meditation of something that you want to send up, and then tied onto these large dream catchers that she she makes these beautiful big natural branch dream catchers. And so people can come and families can come and you can make a tie, a prayer, and hang it on the dream catcher. And so she will be offering that. She also grows beautiful plants, succulent plants, and she'll have some of those for sale. And she also makes different crafts out of leather, and she'll be selling some of those, I believe. And then Daniela is also one of our planning committee members, and she's of Mesoamerican descent, Mexican descent, and she will be doing educational craft table as well, and that will be more of Mexican, maybe, I'm not sure, maybe Day of the Dead themed or other Mexican traditions that she will share with people for Indigenous peoples south of the border. Yeah. So we're so delighted to have her as well. She contributes so much to our event, both of them.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, there really is something for everybody.
Absolutely. Yes. Come one, come all.
Well, sculptor Joseph Gray will also be having an exhibit. And he's part Abenaki, I understand, and he uses hammer and chisel working in stone. And I read on his website, which is just beautiful, his sculpture is just gorgeous, that he has a motto: "A smile and a warming of one's soul is my goal as a sculptor." Now, doesn't that make everybody want to go see his? Yes, of course you want to. And so let's talk a little bit about him, but also he has a sculpture called Harboring Thoughts, featuring a seal. And this is currently, I believe, already on the Clipper City Heritage Trail.
It is.
So people will have the chance to see his work right on the edge of the Merrimack. To where I think it is.
He has another one as well. He has at least 2 sculptures already as permanent parts of the Clipper City Trail.
And we have a photo of the Harboring Thoughts is the name of the one. Maeve, could you put that one up while we're talking about his? So tell us a little bit more about his work and how he'll be featured.
Oh, he's extraordinary, and he shows his work and sells his work all over the world, very highly sought after. And he is going to bring, as he has the past few years, his incredible sculpture to be part of our ceremonial circle. So he has these benches, which some of them are like 6 feet wingspan. I say wingspan because they're carved eagles and hawks and other birds, and they're absolutely gorgeous works of art. But also they honor elements and directions, which is what the circle is intended to be, directionality and elements. And he will bring them and set them out, and it will be for the 4 directions, different animals and different sculptures. So we are so lucky to have him generously donating his time and work to the event to bring awareness and to bring beauty.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to bring artistry.
Yeah. They're just gorgeous, and they do bring a smile, and they do warm your soul.
Yes.
Mission accomplished.
Yes.
So, and there will be also a learning table and talk by Professor Robert Goodby, who's with the Anthropology Department at Franklin Pierce University, I believe. And tell us a little bit about the artifact learning table.
Yes, we're so pleased that Bob Goodby is joining us. He's an archaeologist, and he's also a collaborative archaeologist. This is very important because the history of archaeology and anthropology is often one that has desecrated native homelands throughout the country. So it has a very mixed history. In the last few decades, there's been much more effort to work collaboratively with tribes, and that's one thing that Bob Goodby does with the Abenaki. And so he will be coming with some of the artifacts that have come from sites that he has excavated with his students and teams in New Hampshire, primarily, but near the Merrimack River. And he also will be potentially bringing out some artifacts from the exhibit that is now at the Custom House Maritime Museum, which are local artifacts. So
yes, these are called the Coffin Stream artifacts. And Maeve, could you put up we have a photo of some of the Coffin Stream artifacts. Maeve, if you could put that up for a little bit while we're talking about those. So these were found in West Newbury, I understand.
Yes, at the confluence of the Coffin Stream and the Merrimack River. And it's an interesting history. There was a family who had a farm, a market garden, and as many artifacts have been found here in the Northeast with the shallow soils, when farmers dig up their fields, often artifacts are so close to the surface they come right up. And fortunately, this family, instead of selling them or hoarding them for themselves, they did keep them, but they kept them together as a collection. So the provenance, which is what we call, knowing where they came from and their location and their authenticity, is very well documented.
Yeah.
The collection went up north. It actually ended up at a museum called the Davistown Museum in Maine for many years. And over the time of COVID recently, the museum closed, unfortunately. But fortunately for us, because the Custom House Maritime Museum reached out to them and was able to obtain the collection.
Yeah.
And so they've kind of come home in a sense.
Yeah, they, full circle.
Yeah, full circle, yeah. And so now we have this incredible collection, which really is an educational asset. And actually, I just brought a school group in the other day from the River Valley Charter School.
Oh, great.
And Bob Goodby came to help us curate and to update the labels. Some of them were, incorrectly dated, etc. But he is an expert in that, so he's been a great asset to have, and we're so delighted he can come to the event and have a table where people can look and maybe touch, in some cases, some of the artifacts and to learn about the Native presence here for 13,000 years. He has a book called 13,000 Years.
Wow.
And that is at least as long as Native peoples have been here in this area, but most likely even longer.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. That's really wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, you've also mentioned that it's fitting that this is celebrated at Waterfront Park, right on the Merrimack. And I believe, Kristine, tell us about there are plans to have there be a permanent kind of Indigenous display incorporated into Waterfront Park. Tell us about what those plans are and about how you're working to make that happen.
Thank you. Yes. Well, I want to also acknowledge the city in this, and Mayor Sean Reardon, who's been incredibly supportive of the event and the initiative, as well as the city planning department. And together we're working on creating what we're calling at this time an Indigenous Peoples Place. Site, which will be a commemorative site, an interpretive site for history of Native peoples, but also a gathering site for contemporary Native people, for learning, for cross-cultural building. And so we're working right now on interpretive signage, which is going to be placed near the waterfront so that people can really learn about the long, deep presence of Native peoples here, and also to learn about their survivance and their continuation. And to have a site where people can come and gather. We're hoping eventually to have elements of Native sculpture there.
Wonderful.
Native plants, maybe a Three Sisters garden. So it's a great educational opportunity for everyone to come together and to share and to learn from each other. And so we hope in the next year we'll start to actually see that manifest physically on the landscape.
That would be terrific. That's just very exciting. I think to combine that with the works that's being done to have the African American history unerased, and to have the signage that have, is now available around the city, and to add the Native American component to that, just enriches the lives of everyone who lives in Newburyport, I think. Because it gives us more of a sense of the shared past that we have. We learn more about learning about history is always good.
It sure is, and boy, do we have a lot to learn.
And to unerase, our other neighbors and community members who were here before us.
Yes.
I think it just, people often talk about how everybody wishes there were more diversity in the greater Newburyport. And given how expensive housing is, honestly, of course, that's a huge barrier to accomplish that. Everybody works on it in different ways. But we can have historical diversity that brings cultural diversity and artistic diversity.
Absolutely.
And so it enriches our lives in so many ways.
Yes, and people, Dr. Baumgartner, who's working on this,
And
Black
Jody.
Heritage, and Jody Vining, I was just
Vining,
going to mention, is also working. We're working together on
wonderful.
this interpretive signage
Wonderful.
right now, and we hope to to unveil a prototype at the event
Oh, that'd be
of
great.
the first
Super.
sign.
Super exciting.
So that will be part of the opening ceremonies. We hope to unveil a temporary version so that people can see what we're planning and get excited and hopefully support that.
Wonderful.
Yes.
It's going to be a great day, Kristine. And thank you so much for all the work that you've done to make it happen.
Thank you, Mary, for having me
my
on.
pleasure.
And really, it's not about me. It's about Indigenous peoples and giving them voice and a place to show their art and to perform and present and educate and share. So I hope everyone will come out. It's going to be a fun day, an educational day, a chance to show your support, advocacy, etc.
Again, Monday, October 14th, Waterfront Park, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
To 5, actually.
To
Sorry.
5 p.m.
Yep.
Thank you for
Yep.
correcting me.
5 p.m. Yep.
And remind people where they can get information about the day's events.
Yes, it's at www.imaginestudios.org is the main event website page, and you can also go onto Facebook. And we also want to thank, I forgot to mention some of our partners, including the Mass Center for Native American Awareness.
Sure.
And I would encourage everyone to go to their website, mcnaa.org. And some of the proceeds we also share back with the Native community. I didn't mention that also. So MCNAA will be one of the recipients along with others. So it's a great opportunity to show your support for lots of regional Native groups.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kristine, for taking time to be on the morning show and for the work that you and many others and people in the community have done to make Indigenous Peoples Day happen and to enrich the lives of all of us in Greater Newburyport. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's my honor and pleasure.
Well, that's it for today, everybody. Please join us again next Thursday at 9 for the morning show. Until then, everybody, please be well.